so we don't cut the time too short for Dan and his discussion of...
Sure, so Brownfields. In 2014, the information came out about 690 St. Paul, otherwise known as AKA 175 Martin Street, that there was, it's a brownfield. And so that came out, got a lot of attention, and because there was a public meeting coming up from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the New York State Department of Health had deemed that the site was unsafe.
In what year was that?
2014. And there was a public meeting about the plan to make it safe. And so we just sort of assumed that that had all taken place, and then just in the last month, the building across the street, 691 St. Paul, which is the Monroe County rents, and that's social services, saw all these people earlier in the year walking around in hazmat suits and found out that the county had known for 4 months that the same brownfield pollutants that were at 690 St. Paul had indeed crossed the street, as actually the report said it would in 2014, and that all of those people were being exposed to TCE, and Fred will be able to talk to us about that. So we had assumed this had all been taken care of, and then it popped back up. So I had emailed a bunch of stuff. I'm just briefly going to go through the outline. The good news is the kids who are currently there are significantly safer than every other kid who's ever been there, but still not safe. So in 1996, the developer applied to CMEDA, because there's all kind of politics involved, and got $4 million to begin to renovate, tax-deferred bonds, all that stuff, to develop those properties. In 2000, the Edison Charter School, School of Science and Technology, moved into the building with, in 2002, 1,140 students. So they were there from 2000 to 2005. And at that point, the building was totally unremediated. So those kids had maximum exposure to all of the bad chemicals in this brownfield site.
What kids were these?
The students who were at it was an Edison Charter School, the School of Science and Technology Charter School. In 2002, contractors were digging around, found this huge storage tank full of chemicals that had all leaked out into the soil, and that was known, but nothing was ever cleaned up. And there's stuff, did he ever notify them or the county or the Department of Health, and did he do this or do that? But anyways, all that stuff is just allowed to stay there.
Who found that, Dan?
The contractor.
Okay.
And then in 2003, when the kids were in this charter school, kids were getting sick all over the place. And in 2003, this is the charter school, the county health inspectors came out and found a high level of carbon dioxide in the air, citing poor airflow. Now, the major chemical comes up through soil vapor. So for everybody at that time who was in that building, if you had poor airflow, all those toxic chemicals were just sitting in the building while they were all there. This is just horrible stuff. Then in 2000,
So was carbon dioxide not marked?
they said carbon dioxide because nobody had done sampling to know what the actual chemicals were at that point. 2004, kids were vomiting because the air was so bad in the building at the charter school. So in 2008, the city school district signs a 15-year lease with the developer, and they're paying over $1 million a year.
With Comida?
The developer.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, the county office building across the street was paying $1.4 million a year, all for the privilege of having people exposed to carcinogenic, neurologic impairing chemicals. After the RCSD signs the contract, the developer turns around and files for Brownfield cleanup money. So he waits to get the contract, then files with the state and says, oh, by the way, it's a Brownfield. He
Who's
puts
the
in,
contractor?
it's Dante Galaci. He's the owner, Galaci.
Okay.
He's a big Republican lawyer in town with lots of connections too.
I grew up near Love Canal and
This
Hooker
is
Chemical,
very-
so
very
this
much
is
the
like,
same.
they did learn from that.
So what he does do is he puts in a, before they move in, and the first school to move in is school 33. The second school to move in is school 10. He puts in a suppression system in the basement, so the idea is that you're gonna have a negative pressure to push the air out from the building, which is good, not good enough. 2008, they find more soil as they're getting ready to put in the playground for School 33. They find, guess what? More contaminants in the soil. And they also found at that point, not only when they did studies, not only the TCE and a bunch of other chemicals, but they also found radioactive.
Radon?
No. Oh, I've got it in here somewhere. Not radon. It's actually a radioactive chemical because this was used by not Bosch.
Kodak.
Bosch. And this is all from DNC articles. Everything I'm saying here is all from DNC articles.
I remember we were there, and I remember hearing when we had meetings that it's supposed to be safe because they have this huge air system.
Thorium. There we go, thorium. Yes.
Yeah.
And part of the reason the city, I believe, didn't do due diligence was because there had been a school in the building already, right? So then this all breaks, and about the application for Brownfield status. So the school board, after having kids from 33 in the building for a year in school 10, votes not to use the building for space for kids. Not staff can still come.
See?
But no kids. So the
I
school
told you, we
board,
could-
some of our present school boards, Cynthia, for example, voted against putting kids in the building, which then comes back to the fact that now kids are back in the building. But they still rented it to charter schools. Well, let charter schools go in the building, but we're not going to put city school district kids in the building. So then,
They're city school kids. Anyway,
Charter
so what's
aware.
their-
I know.
Just a new
Right.
name.
Is the charter aware of the issue?
Then, so then in 2014, they come up with a plan, and again, they say at this point the building is unsafe, and part of it is TCE, which Fred's going to talk about. If you look at the report, which is in the email I sent to everybody, they only actually there's a supplementary report that I think I put a link to. You can have, I'm going to have my numbers wrong, like 5 micrograms per cubic liter. And so in the building, like,
1 liter.
yeah, one of air. One sample out of 4 was over that. But when you went outside of the building, you had one site that had 3,000.
3,000 what?
You're only supposed to have 5,
5.
and it had 3,000.
5 is the maximal limit recommended, right?
Right. So they had 3,000 outside of the site. So, open windows, air, and so it's in the groundwater, it's in the soil, when they did this in 2014, they had it in standing water on the site and in soil vapor. And the groundwater, of course, was sloping towards the gorge, which is where 691 St. Paul is. So you knew in 2014 it was going to go over that way. Now, At some point, they put more city school district kids in the site. And then what I dug up is in 2015, they actually did whatever remediation was found, but I don't know if the board knows this. In 2000, so the cleanup started in March of 2015. In June of 2015, the owner signs an environmental easement with the New York State Department of Conservation stating that groundwater on this site can never ever be used for anything. And the building, if I read this correctly, can never be used for residential use.
Love Canal.
So we have a DEC Brownfield site where DEC says you can never use this site for residential, but we have school kids in it.
It's half their life.
And the kids have no choice. I mean, the adults can quit and leave. The kids have no choice. So I talked with Mike Smith the other day on the phone.
Who's Mike Smith?
He's the director of operations in the city school district. We played phone tag and we got in touch. He gave me a bunch of information. LaBella Associates is the contractor in charge of the operation. And they just had a meeting and sent some type of summary to the board, which hasn't been made public. So you don't have to, it hasn't been made public. But what they found is that at the meeting was the Monroe County DOH, DC, the state DOH, DC, obviously the bargaining units were there, OSHA was there, and some other group. And so part of the remediation that was put in 2014 were fans underneath the main building to kind of try to push the soil vapors away from the building. So they were hoping that this would cut down the amount of particulates per liter in the building. And of course, what Mike said is each of these three government agencies all have slightly different numbers for the target you have to hit. And he said that essentially to me, it meant that they hit some but not others. So that was how I interpret. He did say that. I just interpreted. I read between the lines in his comments of what was there. And I have no idea who's actually paid for any of this remediation. I don't know if the district has paid for this remediation, or the owner has paid for the remediation. The owner's going to try to get Brownfield funds, obviously, to pay him back for this. Currently, All City is in the building. There's a charter school in the building. Mike said because the principal of the city school district building asked, because on Facebook a parent had said their daughter was there last year and the water is yicky and smells and tastes
There was a
horrible.
woman on the news tonight.
I missed it. So he said that because the principal asked, he delivers water bottles every day, once a week, or every second week, whatever, to the city school district program.
Get that activist group on this.
I don't know anything about the charter. He didn't mention delivering water to the charter school students. And he said they were going to try to update all that information. And I said, what we would like is, the DC laid out, A, B, C, and D that needs to be done to remediate the site. We just want to make sure the people in our community who work in the building and the students in the building who are in our community are safe. This other stuff is extremely horrible, and the kids who were there before had maximum exposure to really bad stuff, but that's sort of said and done. So did they do a punch list? Did they do A, B, C, D? He said there's a new round of testing going on, and that they would be getting those results, not that they would be releasing them to the community, but that they would be doing that. And then I also contacted, because Justin Murphy and I work together closely on Sunlight, and he was going to try to get that board paper. But whether or not they gave it to him or not, I don't know. But he was going to try to get it. And Mike is very willing to come to the next meeting.
Yeah, I know, he couldn't make it this time.
Now, in terms of environmental stuff, TCE, all that stuff, so I asked our resident neighborhood expert, biochemist, to come and tell us what the heck we're talking about, because parts per million.
So before you start, just let me, so it's clear. So this group's purpose is to try to assure parents, community, students that the school in which they are attending and working is safe. Both air, water, what else?
I don't know. I think this is the first time the committee has ever addressed an issue like this, so I don't know if the committee
Because that's
has
my
an
question,
opinion on
is
what our
this a
is.
role? What's our role in this?
Yeah, well, certainly, like my getting involved with 41, and we were asking some of the same questions, because I know what Kodak was like. That's some of these buildings are outside the area that the Southwest Common Council normally gets involved with, but it's to everybody's benefit in the district to make sure we know what's going on here or there, because sooner or later we'll find some of the same issues in some of the other schools. So
We have students there.
it would be good to follow it up enough to get a feel that things are, being taken care of adequately. In talking with Mike Schmidt, the water in the building, that's all city water. It's the same water supply that we get our water from. Of course, old buildings that have a lot of steel pipes in them, you get brown water, and it doesn't always taste good, but it may or may not be really an issue.
It shouldn't be taking the groundwater should not be getting into
Yeah,
the
groundwater
whole
shouldn't be
system.
getting into it. It's not like out in Detroit area there where they were Flint, where they were getting water from the river that is polluted, that was eating away chemicals.
The water from wells.
Right.
You're not getting water from wells in the city.
Yeah.
And Mike had said that they had done, because every district last year was doing the testing in all
Right.
the buildings because of Flint, and they've tested every water fountain in the district, and I don't know where that data is, but they've certainly.
But this is beyond lead.
This
what
is
you're
beyond
saying.
lead.
So again, my question is, what would this group's role? Would we advocate for certain things? Would we be just communication?
What I see
What-
is that we want to get information from the district to ensure that students in our community, because this is the Southwest Common Council, that students in Southwest Rochester who attend that building or who have attended that building recently are aware. Because the district has done things like at various times sent letters to parents, but do they do that every year? Do they send it to new students? By the way, your students going to school in a Brownfield, they've done it in the past, but do they tell everybody that?
So does the city has all of this information, apparently?
Don't know. I don't know
Well,
if
it's
they
in
have
the
everything.
DNC. I'm thinking they must.
Well, some of this isn't in the DN. Like this piece about the easement, I've never seen
Okay,
anywhere.
okay. And you said that though
That's on the DNC
there were
budget.
some Department of Health, New York State, Monroe County, Ocean, that have been,
Have been working with
Test-
the district.
and so then that's why I'm gonna
So we
assume
assume-
that they are aware of the problem. So we haven't gotten anything from them yet.
We haven't heard any, so until we called, nobody outside people in the district had any idea that those meetings were occurring.
Okay.
It
Okay.
doesn't mean people in the district obviously knew those meetings
Sure.
were going on, but that nobody in the community was aware of that.
So is that one thing that this group then would do is when there's issues like this, which I think are important, just I'm asking questions, but that say, okay, this community, the Southwest, this is an important issue for you to be aware of, because as you said, the adults have a choice not to go, but as a parent, you have a choice not to send your child to that school
Your
either.
child's mandated, or try to get them to a different building.
Right.
Yeah, the kids have no choice. If they're assigned to that building, unless the
So again,
parents have
that's
their
just trying to find
they have to
the
go.
purpose and the role of this
Yeah,
group.
the fact that kids get bussed all over the place means that no matter where you are in the city, what's happening on St. Paul Street
Doesn't mean it's
is an
limited
issue,
to the-
you know?
Right, and we've had,
And it also doesn't mean it's
33
limited
was
to
here,
there.
33 was here, and our kids were there. And School 10, which is here, our kids were there, and our staff were there during that time.
And anybody that goes to Rochester Prep, I've got a niece that's
Sure.
in Rochester Prep right now in that building.
In that
So
building.
she's been there for 4 years, and I have a
Sure.
grandson who's in 7th grade and 9th grade. He's supposed to go in that building.
Right, so one of
So
the
there you
issues
go.
becomes that when you have an issue like this, so it's kind of like the kids this isn't the parallel to Flint, but the kids in Flint are going to school and there's lead in the water, so we're trying to raise their test scores. At the same time, we're lowering their IQ.
Yeah, test scores would be the last thing I'd be worried about at this point.
we're causing neurologic damage. At the same time, we're trying to raise their. I mean, it doesn't work because one of the effects of TC is neurologic. I don't know what exactly, Fred. I'm
So
saying
we should
you.
probably
Yes.
hear that.
Yeah, let's quickly go over what you can tell us about the
Okay,
TC.
very quickly, TCE, trichloroethylene, it has been used a lot in the early 19th century until or 1900s, sorry, until they discovered it caused cancer, or believed that it causes cancer. And it was primarily used as a
Degreaser.
degreasing solvent. Its properties are that it dissolves in water and in oil. So it's both organic solvent and also an aqueous solvent. It also has a very low boiling point, meaning it evaporates easily. So it can leave the soil and get right into the air. So it'll travel through soil like radon and enter into a building space. So when you breathe it, it'll rapidly go through your lungs, dissolve into your blood, and it can deposit in fatty tissue as well. So for all its properties allowing it to enter, it can also exit your body fast. It's not highly reactive, from what I understand. Don't quote me on that.
I just notified him like a few hours ago.
Yeah.
So he can come to the meeting.
During a very busy day. I don't know what the limits are, but if I knew kids were at this site, I would want to see a report, all the studies, all the data. TC is not the only compound that was identified there. TC is a degreasing solvent, so it was used to remove compounds from machinery. And so there are other chemicals there, and in a study that Dan just showed me, other compounds have been found. TC is easier to detect because it can travel through many feet of soil into a building.
What else is flowing under the ground? We
Right, that
don't
is
know.
not volatile. So volatile means it goes from a liquid to a gas phase. So it can travel with the water. It can exist in the soil. If kids are playing in soil that has TC, they can pick up TC. It sounds like they did some intermediate remediation where they removed the top layers of soil and replaced it with fresh soil. I mean, I've read that you can even just seed a lawn just to have an additional barrier, but that's just temporary, in that if there is a reservoir of contaminated material deeper, it will eventually travel. And so it should be monitored regularly, and there really should be a plan for this. This is really serious. When I didn't know that kids were getting that sick.
So,
And the other issue I'll just raise is what we're exposed to as an adult, to chemicals that affect our nervous system. Well, our nervous systems aren't developing that much. We're not as well as our anatomy is not developing as much as a child's. And I actually was exposed to lead a couple of years ago, and I lost my short-term memory for about a year. And I just thought, wow, a child would never recover from that.
yeah.
So this is from the 2009 DNC article. Exposure to high levels for, this is TC, exposure to high levels for long periods can cause damage to the central nervous system, because as Fred said, it can enter your bloodstream, and once your bloodstream, I don't know how easily it crosses the brain-blood barrier, but kidneys.
Actually, 1 million people have been intentionally exposed to this because it was used early in the 1900s as an alternative to chloroform and ether as an anesthetic. So they understand actually what is going on.
And how quickly.
You can get paralysis in facial nerves that can last for a very long time. And so the issue here is that kids are going there every day. They're just constantly being exposed at a low-level dose.
Kidneys and
It's
liver.
not really well understood how bad it is, but if they are getting sick,
So it can impact, well, can impact kidneys and liver, as well as the reproductive functions and fetal development. So any pregnant people in the building. Studies have also suggested long-term exposure to high levels in the air or water likely leads to increased risk of cancer, especially of the kidneys, and children are thought to be more susceptible to the effects. So clearly, before anything was done, those kids at the initial charter school it was really bad. There have been steps taken over time to make the building safer. And as Mike said in an email to the group, it's still a brownfield. So the question is it a brownfield that is safe for our kids and staff to be in? Because they could have remediated the building itself to the point where they're not being exposed. I asked, there's the fans. I asked Mike, are they running 24/7, 365 a year? He said yes. And he
I don't
said,
think this is blown into the surrounding
yes.
area. So what?
Towards Oasis,
That was my point too.
So what
That was
do
my
we
point
do?
too, Gail.
So what do we do? Do we say to the board, we've been aware of this, we've got concerns? Are you going? When will you let us know?
well,
I mean, what do we do?
I think you want to insist on understanding what monitoring has been done
Okay.
and what monitoring will be done. Because you can't just
That's good.
assume this
Two
is
questions.
a linear process, that it's only going to leak out slowly or that it's been solved. Wow.
How soon would you see problems? And when you said
Sounds
that
like
it's
fairly quickly.
affects the nervous system, etc. How soon would you see that in a person?
It depends
It
on the
really
concentration.
depends on the dosage and the frequency.
In 4 years, 8 hours a day?
But we don't know what the dosage was back then. And even if you did measure it any one day, you may not really get a good value for the whole
You could have windows open that day.
Right.
or a month. And because it's volatile, because it evaporates rapidly.
So would those be the two questions, Fred, that seem to me, I mean, you don't want to give a whole litany to the board, but if you had those two questions, we think it's fair that we know what monitoring has been done since almost, what'd you say there, Dan, 1996?
Well,
No.
the students first were in the building in 2000.
Okay, so
But
from
city schools-
2000,
Was that
what,
Yes, that was the charter
what
school.
monitoring and what monitoring is ongoing?
wasn't Edison
Start with
taught.
those two, seems to me.
Edison was the
Does that make
company
sense?
And by what monitoring, I would say what compounds are being tested for, what are the limits of detection, and what were the actual values.
Yeah.
I mean, really, let's get to, quantitative absolute measurements.
Which is why I was hoping Fred could be here, because he's going to understand them far better than I am. So I would propose that Mike has volunteered to come to the next meeting and do a presentation. Justin Murphy at the DNC is looking into stuff. So to have Mike come and report to this group on what's been done, and whatever board members want to be here can be here for that, because that would be helpful.
And what monitoring is going on, and what is it that they are monitoring?
Yes, and they should, and we would hope that they would give us that information in advance of the meeting so we could have a chance to look through it. I mean, again, my impression is it was really, really bad. It's gotten better, but I don't know if it's good enough.
Well, I think the other people to contact are if there's a community organization around St. Paul.
I don't know. I'm sure
But,
there
I
is.
mean, they should be more vested in it than we are. I mean, we can be vested because there's kids from here going in just in general.
Yeah, it's on the northeast more than.
Oh,
Right.
do they have a similar group as this? The Northeast?
Well, they have a
See,
community organization, I mean, there's a whole bunch around.
Are they asking questions?
I don't think so.
Not that I am aware of, but what I can say is that the board is looking into this stuff and is asking a lot of the questions that you all posed tonight. I guess the word that I can say is that there are other commissioners that are very passionate about this,
Good.
and that feel that even the slightest exposure is still our responsibility.
Right.
Me being one of them, and I know that the deal was made for a 15-year contract on this, so there are some legal parameters. But what I can say tonight is that even with charter schools, they're still students of our community,
They are.
and so I can speak for myself that. Even the adults there, that I do feel that it's still our obligation because we put them there. So,
Well, I
It-
think you could probably go back to Kodak and the city's responsibility. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a few people that are complicit, not that just that's the
Not
word.
Kodak.
Kodak, Bausch and Lomb.
Lomb.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Bausch and
Yeah.
Lomb.
Is this something Kodak has nothing to do?
Although it is also used for cleaning, an anti-static cleaning agent for film. But Kodak was not involved in this.
In this building.
And so I do think that it's very appropriate to not only ask questions for data, but then to also request an action to the board at any meeting that comes up. And that way, then, we can talk about it in the open that way because it was brought up by the community.
That was my other question. I know you said that this Mike Schmidt has agreed to come and talk to us, but seems to me, and I know the city board works a little bit differently than the suburban boards I've been used to, but that was going to be my question. Does anybody from here ever go to a board meeting and say, as a community group, here's an issue and here's some questions? Would that be an appropriate thing to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And in this case too, for me, I can speak for myself, that even with brown water, that was brought to my attention. I have a problem with that, even if it's safe. I just
God,
think
yeah.
it's inappropriate, to be having our kids drinking
Yeah.
brown water.
No. Now,
Sorry.
The important piece is that understandably, okay, every single time the district has ever been quoted in the paper, their response has been, whoever the representative is, it's safe. Everything. Now that's before somebody spent a lot of money to do phase one, and it was still, and then a lot more money to do phase. It was still safe. So every time the district, because what are they going to say? We have kids in an unsafe building.
So,
I mean, so we can't just take it's safe and assume it's safe, because every time they've ever said it's safe, it indeed wasn't.
can't you ask to have the report made public?
Well,
Well, all of that
complete-
as
should
a
be
board
public
member, she
anyway.
can
so-
request that, but that's
Should
a
not be public knowledge that this is a public space.
The public
And so
school.
instead of words saying it's safe, which is kind of vague, because like lead limits have been dropping over the decades on what is considered a safe level of lead. What was said safe 10 years ago in the context of a unknown mixture of chemicals may be redefined with more detailed studies a year
At the same
later.
time, the detection limits have gone down.
Mhm.
So things that years ago would have been non-detectable, now
And
it's
the
so many
EPA
ppb.
so just
Gotten rid of all regular.
If the district does not provide requested data, there's always FOIA.
taken out as 4.
Boy.
So after years of saying the building's safe, in 2014, the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation said the site poses a significant threat to public health or the environment due to elevated concentrations of contaminants in groundwater, soil, and soil vapor. The activities in the report have been designed to address.
Now, where did that come from, Dan?
That comes from a DNC
A 2014.
14 D&C fact sheet that then, so this then said, this is what we need to do to remediate the site. And so the question is, were all the steps taken to remediate the site? And after it was done, did it work?
I think Fred's question is excellent. What's the plan to continue to on an ongoing
Yes.
basis? Because this isn't just disappearing.
No, this is just like, well, I mean, to a certain extent of.
Oh, I'm telling you, flashbacks. I didn't live right there, thank goodness. But
Okay, well, are you gonna be following this up, Dan? I
Well,
assume
when I-
you've got some energy wrapped up in
Yeah.
this now.
Well, I had energy to pull all this all together.
Uh-huh.
I'm trusting that Justin Justin Murphy, the D&C report, education reporter, will follow up because I've been pushing him really hard and he owes me a couple favors. So,
And he stays on top of us, you know.
Plus,
So.
hopefully an activist
and
group
Natalie was here
that-
today,
Yeah.
Get that
and I
going.
know there's some. I'm assuming I know which board members, and I know which board members in the past have been have voted against. I mean, here's a
against,
putting back when this first came out. The board
against
voted,
having kids go back in there?
yes, district scraps plan for schools and factory.
Okay.
That was in 2009.
Yeah.
But again, somewhere along the line, we ended up with kids back in the building.
So I guess I will say we want a full report, and I'll say, make two comments. TCE was the most high-level contaminant found. I haven't read the literature, but it has been reported to lead to kidney cancer, liver toxicity, some autoimmune diseases, and then there are other compounds that are present. The levels weren't as high. We should know what those are. They actually may be more toxic,
Right.
even present
I
at
thought,
lower
is this the
levels.
list of
This
all
is the
the?
list from 2014. So the other part is that, because
Lead.
what I had, the email I sent to Mike was, okay, so when you said it's safe, are you talking soil vapor, groundwater, I mean, what's safe? And then, is the district doing any medical monitoring of people? So Eleanor, I would tell your
don't know.
your daughter to go have her daughter have a full tox screen to see whether she has any high levels of any of these contaminants. I'd bring the list in and bring it to the doctor and say, are any of these at high levels in her body?
And where can you get the list
But
from?
I
but I will,
You emailed it.
I will say
John will make sure it
TCE
gets to
can leave
everybody.
your body as quickly as it came.
So it may not be
You will-
detected.
Well, depending on when you were exposed and when you're
Tested.
tested, if there's a sufficient lag time,
Okay.
you may have excreted a lot of it in your
Okay.
urine.
So, but people
Maybe
should be
not.
following up with their medical community in town, and one of the connections I wanted to make was with the, not the lead, with the,
Coalition to Prevent Lead Poisoning.
right, that group. Because there's lead in this site too.
Elizabeth Murphy.
Yeah, so I was thinking I wanted to connect with her, I just haven't had a chance to do it.
Yeah, I had gotten a hold of Mike Schmidt.
Mike's a nice guy.
Oh, he's a nice guy. And we've been working with him a lot in getting the stuff together for 16 and the other schools around here. But I had contacted him to see about 41 because as we start trying to figure out how do you save 41 and maybe try to get some renovations done, what have they tested there? And I know there was a lot of stuff that Kodak did in terms of testing, and that's right next to the Kodak properties, so it'd be good to know which way are things flowing, what has been found, and Mike was still trying to get the latest news from any testing that other organizations have been doing in that area, so he's trying to give us straight answers, but straight answers aren't always easy to find. It's not, the district itself isn't the ones doing the test wells, and so
Now, the other
we've
part-
got plenty of things to keep us.
The other part is the owner of
Interested.
this building is the owner of the building across the street. And so this owner knew all along that this stuff was there.
Did he?
How
do you
far
know
from
he knew?
Oasis?
He's the same owner.
From
He's
Oasis
had all
are
these
they?
reports. He's been at these meetings.
I'm going to our director tomorrow because I'm at Oasis. And I'm wondering if, I mean, it's about twice as far as the social services building.
Yeah, you guys are just down that way a little
It's
bit.
not that far.
Not that far. And which way is downstream?
Yeah, right.
So just one last walk-in item.
Yes?
So Wilson, so I had contacted the principal of Wilson at the beginning of the year, just blanking her name, Russell.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, so in front of Wilson is a World War I memorial. It has been there for 100 years, 99 years. And it's in honor of all of the students from Wilson who died in World War I. And so I had proposed that they have the students come, the teachers come up with a curriculum to teach the kids about these kids, these 20 people who died from the neighborhood, and that they then in 2018 rededicate the memorial. So she jumped right on it. Actually, she was great, and she's got the staff working on the curriculum, and they have enclosed the memorial because it was cracked. Not the memorial itself, but the stand was cracking, and they are in the process of trying to repair the memorial. So I'm hoping that in 2018, at the 100th anniversary, we can have a ceremony with the school and the neighborhood to rededicate this. When they first dedicated it, it was a big thing.
Wouldn't this, I may be stretching what I'm thinking is my definition of community stuff, but, so wouldn't that, the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is, well, that's really cool. Wouldn't a VFW want to be part of that and perhaps help assist with it, help provide
We're
some
working
funding?
with, through other stuff not related to the
Right.
schools committee. We have an historic cemetery in the neighborhood, and we have a number of we have 2 Revolutionary War veterans, 1812 veterans, Civil War veterans. So we're working with the various veterans groups, making sure that the veterans in that
I'm thinking VFW,
old
that
cemetery.
was-
So
Yeah.
so that's another connection we're
Yeah.
trying to make.
Yeah.
But it's been great
Okay.
to have Wilson take that and just.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing all this information.
And thank you for Fred at 3 hours notice.
Yes, thank you, and we hopefully will see you here next time when
we get
Mike's
this
here
information.
to answer questions for us. So, thank you very much,
Okay.
and hope you'll be back.
I will.
We try not to run past 8 o'clock.
No, I do. I am gone for a couple months in the winter, particularly February, March.
Snowboard
May.
now. Snowbird.
Well, but not in any particular place. But
All right.
Thank you, everybody.